Hello and welcome to a new series I'm going to be running. It's Windows 98 and Windows 98 software and games. Specifically, what I'm running here is Windows 98 Second Edition. The original release of Windows 98 was quite buggy, so they released Second Edition about a year later. It was also quite buggy, as most Microsoft systems are at launch. But it was an improvement. And it was back in the day when I got my first computer that was mine, and it wasn't like the family computer. It was a Windows 98 Second Edition machine, a hand-me-down rather. Once my parents decided they wanted to get Millennium Edition, of course, if you remember that one, was a piece of garbage. Um, but yeah, so this I got a hand-me-down on Windows 98 Second Edition, and that's where I played a lot of what would you say, nostalgic games for the first time. Counter Strike, Half Life, um, Diablo 2. Of course, a lot of these games. But yeah, so what I'll be doing is I'll be installing actual software from the CD. I have picked up some software. Sometimes I'll see old computer software at Goodwill, and uh, and then of course also I just have some old software from back in the day, games specifically, not software. I didn't hold on to any old software on my own. But we'll be installing those, see how they run. Now I will need to say that this is running on a virtual machine. It's not running on actual hardware. I don't have an older computer that I can actually install Windows 98 on. That would be nice one day to maybe play around with that. But this is running inside of VirtualBox. Now it is an actual Windows 98 installation. With the CD key and everything. It's not like a ISO that I downloaded from the internet. It is a disk that I put in my CD tray in my desktop over there, and then installed through VirtualBox. So a couple of things to point out. It seems to be a little laggy, um, and I think that's because of the emulation. I think if I was running this on native hardware, um, you see how you can see slight ghosting on things. I don't really remember that being true for the operating system itself. It could have been, but I think that's just from the emulation again. Um, and then I am recording this through a desktop capture with my video card with NVIDIA ShadowPlay. So I do want to get into installing software. Nothing is currently installed. The stuff I'm going to be showing is currently installed on the computer, so we'll be going through the installation process as well, and then playing around with the software or the games. And with the games, I'm not going to be doing like a full let's play or anything. We'll just kind of be booting in, looking at the options, maybe playing the game for a couple of minutes. Um, so I will go just a brief overview of what we have going on here of Windows 98 itself. There's other videos you can find where they go over Windows 98, but there are a couple of things I would like to show off and then point out for what I've done with this installation as well. Um, of course, the first thing that's always fun is to go in here and look at the themes. Everybody remembers all the crazy themes you could have back then. Leonardo da Vinci with like his sketches and some unique icons, and the mystery one was the one that I always remember having set because I thought it was cool and I liked the sounds. Of course, another fun one was inside your computer where it's showing you the inside of a CRT monitor, which these days wouldn't be very relevant. On an LCD, it's not quite the same. Just some other ones. Um, I'm just using Windows default, and then with the wallpaper set. Um, So, yeah, a couple of things you might go ahead and notice off the bat in the control panel. I have Tweak UI installed. So that's where I can, do an automatic login. Some other stuff. Now, Tweak UI doesn't come inherently with Windows 98 or 98 Second Edition. That actually came a part of what is called the Unofficial Service Pack. Somebody actually maintains an unofficial service pack, and they're on version 3 now for Windows 98 and 98 Second Edition. It's pretty interesting. It's actually very recently updated. I saw when I downloaded it. There was an update for it just like a week ago, and of course this is being recorded on January the 20. I believe it's the 26th. Let's. I don't know where my phone is. It's probably should 26th. Yeah. Of course, I could have also. I guess have gone down in the calendar here. That would have been a better use of showing off the operating system. So yeah, as you can also see, Windows 98 can go past the year 1999. There was no Y2K bug going on for that. So anyway, to move into back to what I was saying, the unofficial service pack. There's some other software like again Tweak UI. We have here Registry Cleaner, which is pretty interesting. I didn't know about this back in the day, and some of these other things that pretty much aren't important. Cab Packer is pretty interesting. You make a cab file. But yeah, some of this other Microsoft IPsec VPN. I'm not going to be trying to do a VPN on my 98 virtual machine. I did install some other core software though that I feel is essential. FileZip, or 7-zip file manager. Interestingly enough, the version 9.2 just installs on Windows 98. The newer version that came out, I don't think it was like 6 months ago, does not support, or rather, it's not compatible on Windows 98. But yeah, 9.2, you just download the 32-bit exe off of the website, and you just install it on 98, and it works just fine. Of course, you'll also see VLC Player. Similarly, with VLC Player, an older version installs just fine on 98. It's going to be 0.8.6i is the last version that just has built-in compatibility for Windows 98. You don't have to patch it or anything. Now, later versions do not work without any kind of extra work to be done. Yeah, you just download, and you can download that version through their FTP server. And then, of course, let's see, what else did I have installed? We had the VLC, 7-zip. Oh yeah, Opera. Of course, I'm using Opera over Internet Explorer. Now, Internet Explorer, the version of Internet Explorer that comes on 98 Second Edition is Internet Explorer 5. But you can go up to Internet Explorer 6 with the Service Pack 1. And why am I getting this? Is it... Now, one thing I've noticed, and I am connected to the internet here, we'll see MSN load. One thing that I've noticed is just some pages just will not load. I should probably just go ahead and set this back to use default. What does that take us to? Yeah, like some pages just like don't load. Okay, it's just now it redirects you to MSN, whatever that used to be. And as you can see, also, the page is kind of laggy. I mean, we are doing Windows 98 here, but the fact that it is virtualized or emulated, it does take a performance hit. I'm sure if I was running this on native hardware, it would be better. So, like, what's this? Even Google, it's not loading. Wonder if it's some kind of certificate issue or something. But yeah, again, I mean, as you can see, some pages work. Let's do a Bing search and see. Let's do a search for Google, and then see if the DNS will resolve. for some reason through clicking through the search link. It's of course slow again, as I've said. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, just some things don't work with just the older browser. Just flat out won't work. Um, oh, I could probably do something in the internet options it was saying, but I don't really care because I am using Opera. You have a couple of options. Older versions of Opera and older versions of Firefox will install on Windows 98. Oh, I didn't want to go to this page right away, but I will. And we'll jump back to this in just a moment. So yeah, DuckDuckGo, as you can see, would not load in Internet Explorer, but it is loading in Opera, and of course Google will load as well. I use DuckDuckGo myself, just a personal preference. Um, but yeah, so the reason, of course, as we could see in Internet Explorer, just better compatibility with websites right off the bat for their, Web 2.0, as they say. Um, now I'm using on my main OS. I run Windows 10 on my actual computer. I use Firefox, but the reason I'm using Opera here is the version of Opera that works with 98 versus Firefox is more recent. The last version of Firefox, version 2, I think it's 2.0.20, was released in 2008. And this version of Opera, which I believe is like version 10 point something, or 11 maybe even, 10.61, came out in 2010. So, a little more web support or web standards, as far as HTML code and CSS, a little bit more support, not a whole lot. And you can see when you can just go to my website here, it's a little personal website I run. It's nothing fancy. This is not how it's supposed to render, but it renders better than it does in Internet Explorer, which I'll go ahead and bring back up for a comparison. Interestingly enough, it's got rounded borders. The CSS for curved edges works, whereas in I think when I looked at it in Internet Explorer, the that background just didn't even load. Yeah, it just doesn't even load the banner. Hover works. Hover, is kind of an old standard though, this day and age. Um, but yeah, there's of course back to Opera. Still doesn't load the right way, but it does at least load the banner and some of the other elements. So anyway, so yeah, Service Pack 3, if you're interested in that, it has a website here. Windows 98 Second Edition Service Pack 3.x. It has gone through some version histories, of course, the first release, and then up through what they considered, 1.1, better scan disk and minor bug fixed. The very, very first release. Actually, I think that's the most recent patch notes. But yeah, as you can see, this person or this group of people, released these versions with just more and more fixes and changes and additions until we get down to version 3.52, where they added, patched some shell, or rather some DLL files like shell32 and MSLS31. But yeah, this actually just came out a couple days ago. Now, the forum doesn't actually work in Opera or Internet Explorer, so in order to download this, I actually had to download it on my desktop and then copy it over onto the virtual machine. to actually get that file. Yeah, I couldn't just download it because there's something about the whatever way the page is, and I think a lot of it has to do with HTTPS, but some HTTPS stuff loads like Google and DuckDuckGo. So I wonder if it just has to do with whether the certificates are signed or not. It might have something to do with it. And these older browsers just will straight up not load the page for security reasons. Maybe I'm not really sure. Um, that's not something I have a ton of knowledge about, so I don't really know what's going on there. But the stuff that I need to work works, and the stuff that doesn't, if I need it to work, can work around. But yeah, so the unofficial service pack 3, adds some stuff in, like the tweak UI, and patches some stuff. Makes it a little bit more modern in certain ways. Adds some more functionality. So it's a good thing to have. Now, one thing I will say though is that it did make the boot up time longer. Before I installed it, it was much quicker. Um, and of course, as an emulation, it was just taking longer in general than on native hardware. But installing this service pack did, I would say, added almost a solid 30 seconds to the boot time, which isn't a big deal because this is something I just mess around, and it's not like I need to be like, oh, turn on already. I can wait. It's fine. Now the other thing that I have going on here is this driver, this video driver from this Bare Windows, this VBEMP9X project. It's a universal VESA and VBE video display driver for Windows 9X. That's 95, 98, 98 second edition, and Millennium edition. And so this is actually, it's just a video driver. Um, what's nice about it is you'll see is I can actually run the resolution, higher resolution. I'm running the 1280 by 1024. That was the cool resolution back in the day. Is back then you wanted your icons to be small as possible so you can have as much desktop space as possible. It's just like, oh yeah, look at all the space that I got on my screen. Without without this just the native installation of Windows 98 before I installed this driver was 640 by 480. I think I don't even think it went to 800 by 600. I know for sure I couldn't even go to 1024 by 768. But now, of course, I'm running at what I used to run back in the day. It can even go up to 1600 by 1200. But my monitor, I have a 16 by 9 monitor. Doesn't That's too tall, essentially. By 1200 pixels, it's too tall. So it it doesn't show everything in there. So 1020 by 1024 actually works out pretty perfectly. So yeah, that's a cool thing. This driver, you can install it and then get. Oh yeah, another thing too is I couldn't even with the native install. And again, this is through VirtualBox. Now, if you're going to do native hardware, I'm sure it would pick up your actual video card and work with you. But yeah, with here, I could even only go up to 16 color. I didn't have 256 color or even any of the bit colors. So now I can of course run it in 32-bit color mode versus this nasty looking. Well, I don't want to restart my computer. But yeah, it just looks gross. Windows Update, of course, does not work. Microsoft does not support 98 at all anymore. So this page will actually it just constantly refreshes itself, and that was one of the reasons for doing the service pack. To get a lot of the updates. Also, more than just patching and adding things in, you get the Microsoft updates for 98 that you can't get otherwise anymore. Actually, and from what I was reading on the internet, just as recently as a few years ago, they were still available on Microsoft's FTP servers, but now they're just not. They're gone as of a few years ago. So yeah, that's just the overview. I forgot to time this, so I don't know. I don't know how long this is ran for. So I might cut it off in a moment. And then we'll get into some software and some games and then some other ones. But what else to show remote desktop. You know, it's been around for a while. VLC, of course, doesn't really ever change in terms of its UI. Um, so you know, I don't actually have any videos on here to load. Um, yeah, there's nothing really already in there. So one thing I will close out with that's kind of cool that I don't think a lot of people know about is oh, I don't actually need to go into the control panel. Um, you know, you remember the old, everybody knows the old screensavers. I like 3D Maze. Of course, you know, you had the pipes and it, you know, here you go, drawing the pipes around. You know, a lot of people liked that one. Um, you know, a lot of the 3D stuff, the, you know, Windows logo, which you could even change to other stuff, you know, and what have you. My favorite, of course, was always the maze because you know, it was cool. You would you know, you just watch it for hours. And I remember in school, the screensavers on the computers in the classroom were 3D maze. So, you know, I would just sit there and zone out from the teacher and just watch the 3D maze going. Why was that running so janky? It actually, this is new. It was running smoothly up until just now. I don't know. See how it's running smooth like that? That's how it was running. Was the preview. I don't know what happened. Is that it? Does that mean anything? Did that something happen there? Yeah, maybe. I guess. But it was definitely running in full screen. Oh. It's weird. I don't know why it's doing this now. Anyway, it bothers me a little bit. But anyway, the whole reason I went into here is what I don't think a lot of people realize is you can actually change. Let's go ahead and bring that back down so it's not laggy. But you can change the textures, and what you can also do is you can choose user provided ones, so ones that aren't even built in. So you can actually make it be a file off your computer. So one thing I always like to do when I would jump on one of the computers in school is I would always like to mess with the screensaver, you know, and you just put something kind of scary on there, and then you know, go ahead and save this. Yeah, let's keep it untitled. So you know, I would throw up something like this, and then when the screensaver would come on, you know, if a teacher happened to catch it, then they just saw this, you know, they would always be pretty freaked out. So that was always kind of fun. And you know, I can just imagine some of the things people set this to back in the day. But yeah, you know, it's just fun stuff. Windows 98 was just always a big ball of good times. So yeah, that's about it for the overview. Um, yeah, I guess a couple other things. You know, like like everything is actually in the Windows folder, which is unlike other, you know, modern versions of Windows. You know, you have your separate users folder. When in XP, you know, you have documents and settings, but like, oh, just pretty much everything is in the Windows folder. Um, the only stuff that's not in the Windows folder is program files, and of course my documents. But why is this hanging out here? This can actually be deleted. That was part of upgrading Internet Explorer 5 to Internet Explorer 6. I don't know why that was hanging out in there. And some of this other stuff must have come from when I ran up the update, the unofficial service pack. I don't know. It was just like log files, and these system files scare me. I don't know what they're doing in here. I guess I'll just leave everything so like it really matters. This is new also. I guess I'll just, so it must have just come with the official service pack installation. But yeah, I'll just, whatever, just leave that stuff in there. Get rid of that. And I'll leave that in there. So yeah, again, that's just kind of the overview of Windows 98. And again, next time we'll be back with some software installation. Just as a sneak peek, we got Microsoft Works. This one was actually from Windows 95 and Windows 3.1 era, and actually I think it's from the 3.1 era. I think it was for 3.1, but it does work on, well, it worked on XP anyway. I don't know if it'll work on, we'll find out. MechWarrior 2, you saw this is designed for Windows 95, so we'll see if it runs on Windows 98. I have Adobe PageMaker here as well. This is, when was this one from? Let's see here. It doesn't say. Just for Windows, it's probably Windows 95 or 98 times. The latest, would be around Windows XP era. Oh, 2001. So it's actually Windows XP, so we'll see if it will run on this older operating system. And then this one here I just bought based purely on the picture. Look at this guy having a grand old time, making his email all fancy. And then this one here is for C97, so it's either for Windows 95 or, well, yeah, I guess it would have been for Windows 95. Yeah, CD-ROM exclusively for Windows 95. So we'll see if this runs on Windows 98 as well. Probably will. I just really can't think of a reason why I wouldn't. So yeah, that's just a preview of some things to come. I have some more games that I didn't have pulled out here because I'll go into those down the road. But yeah, that's that, and I hope you guys enjoy the video and hope you enjoy the things to come. All right, that's that.